Hey, welcome to Prop Live. Today, I'm Bill, and today we're going to dive into my internet history. No, we're going to dive into my life before prop making, before Punished Props. And maybe when you hear my story and you see kind of how I got to where I am now, maybe that will help you on your path or inspire you in some way. We've got the PropTarts with us down in the chat, everyone hanging out, all of my favorite people. Also, let me real quick just go over to the Facebook page, the PropTart Facebook page. Those of you watching, especially if you're new, you're not aware, the very best group on Facebook is the PropTarts. And of course, we'll have a link to the PropTart page in the chat. If you're looking for a great place to be inspired or have your questions answered or just to see what other people are working on, this is the best place for it. The PropTart group is so fantastic. Jan here just made my first mold. Should have poured from the center hole though. So already learning as they work. Very good. Again, a link to that in the chat. But if you go to Facebook and look up the PropTarts, you can ask to join, and go make some friends over there. A lot of wonderful people, and most of those people are hanging out in the chat with me today, and I am honored that you guys are here. Today is International Talk Like a Pirate Day. That's why I be wearing my pirate hat. Of course, we just recently did a bunch of Sea of Thieves stuff. My lantern video just went out. If you want to know what's possible, how to make a lantern in 4 hours, then that's the video for you. And of course, the hat video went out a couple weeks ago. Brittany's hat's over there. We got the lantern. So if you're looking for pirate stuff, we got you covered. Like I said, we have the PropTarts hanging out down below, getting ready to throw some questions my way as we dive into my story. A lot of really great people hanging out. Ringleader Luna says, yo ho and a bottle of rum. I don't have any rum with me, but I do have coffee. Let's just pretend it's a really dark rum. Let me see here. Okay, I'm just going to dive into my story. And if you guys have any questions as I go, please drop them in the chat. And I'll be happy to answer them. One of the questions I get a lot, especially from people who are in high school, who are just graduating and looking to take the next step, they want to know, where did I go to school? How did I learn what I learned? Well, I didn't go to school for prop making. That was all learned on the job, so to speak. But my traditional training, I went to a couple of different colleges for computer art with a focus on 3D modeling and animation and rigging and texturing. And basically everything you need to know to make a 3D rendered movie. And I did that for 2 years at one school, 2 years in another school in upstate New York. That's where I met my wife, Brittany, and a couple more of my very best friends. And we all lived together and worked together and animated together and played video games together and partied together. We were pretty inseparable. There was a core 4 of us, plus a handful of other people along our journey. Talon Grayson says, but why is the rum gone? I know, right? All I have is coffee. But anyway, even though I wasn't doing prop making per se, I was still creating and developing my eye, so to speak, learning to see the work that I was doing. And but also I learned awful lot about 3D modeling. I did it counting college for about 7 years. I never actually got a full-time job as an animator or as a 3D modeler or a 3D artist of any kind. There were several projects that I worked on that just never ended up finishing or becoming anything. There was a movie that I worked on for about a year and a half. Did a lot of modeling for that, and it just never got off the ground. But it was a ton of really good experience and a ton of practice. Let me see here. Core Geek just left me. Core Geek says, who wore it better? That's That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing, Eric. That's awesome. So anyway, my formal education is mostly 3D modeling. That's mostly what I did, or at least I got the best at, was doing digital fabrication. After college, like I said, I never actually got a job doing 3D modeling or animation. I actually got a job bartending. So after college, I got a job bartending, did that for a couple of years. Fisher Builds wants to know 3D Studio Max or Maya. Well, I've used both of them. I've mostly used Maya. Although nowadays I like Fusion 360. Maya does a lot of things pretty well, and it's good for all the things, but it's not my favorite for any one specific thing. I prefer Fusion 360 for modeling things for 3D printing. Anyway, I spent a couple of years after college bartending and playing video games for the most part. That's right when World of Warcraft came out, so I was playing that a lot. Like a lot. But then after a couple of years, my friends and Brittany and... let's see, I think there were five or six of us in total. We all decided that if we just stayed in our own little town in upstate New York bartending, that we would just do that forever. So we decided to make a huge change and move to the West Coast. So we moved from New York State all the way down 90 to Seattle. We moved to Seattle in 2006. That sounds right. And that's when I got to work on a movie project and learn an awful lot for a couple of years. Still played a lot of World of Warcraft. And during this time, I had lots of hobbies. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to collect hobbies pretty rampantly. So I got into making chainmail. I made some shelves. I was living in a small apartment, but I had a circular saw, so I made shelves. We got into doing costume stuff, like Halloween costume stuff. We'd go to Ren fairs. We weren't really like into cosplay per se, but we still made stuff. And like all the creative skills that we kind of picked up along the way started to kind of coalesce. Star Shadow says, do you see yourself making props and costumes later in life, in your 50s? I don't see any reason why I would stop unless something else that's more fun and more exciting takes over. But right now, I don't see any reason to stop. The Natesters is curious what the initial seed for the cosplay thing was. I'll get to that in just a moment. After we moved to Seattle, we started doing more costume stuff. We had the Portland Pirate Festival down in Portland, Oregon. Went there a few times. I actually proposed to Brittany at the Pirate Festival, and we were both dressed like pirates. So that's how we roll. And we actually went and got like pirate clothing, like at the Ren Fair or pirate festivals. You can I got a really nice pirate hat, a nice pirate vest, and outfit. So that's really kind of where we got started with the costume stuff. But we had friends who were way into cosplay, way into anime. Anyone in the chat go to Otakon in Baltimore? I have never actually been there, but my friend Erin used to go all the time. She'd drive down from New York and go to Otakon. Well, we convinced her and her husband to move out to Seattle. And since we were all hanging out a lot, she said, hey, let's find an excuse to dress up in costume at PAX. So this would have been 2009, I think, 2008, 2009. And we all decided to dress up as Team Fortress characters. We were the blue team. We had 6 of us, I think. Let me see if I can find a photo. But yeah, the initial thought for cosplaying for us was we had a friend who was like, hey, this is really fun. We should all do this together. And we did. And it was in fact super, super fun. It was especially fun because we had like 6 people in our group. I'm trying to sign into my Yahoo account so I can show you my photos on Flickr. Why are you being so? Sorry, everybody. I don't log into my Flickr account very often. There we go. Of course, there are new privacy terms for Flickr since I haven't logged in 4 months. But I do have a photo that I want to show you guys. Is that it? Nope, I found it. Here we go. There we go. This is our Team Fortress team. I'll put a link to this album in the chat. Hey, Bob's here. And Bob does like to make stuff. Hey, Bob. I appreciate your foam head helping us out during Evan and Caitlin's prop off build. That was pretty fantastic. Anyway, yeah, so my friends and I dressed up as the Team Fortress characters. There are 6 of us. So I'm the soldier, Brittany's the sniper, my college roommate Mike is the scout, our friend Phil. Actually, Mike works at Bungie now. Phil works at Funko now. He's our spy. Nate, the engineer, he works at Microsoft now. And Erin is married to Mike. She's our medic. So that was our whole team. We went to PAX like that, and people lost their minds. Like, this was 2009. No one dressed up at PAX. Hardly anyone dressed up, let alone did a whole team. So we had 6 people running around. People lost their minds, and we were absolutely hooked on cosplay. It was time. As soon as we were done with that, as soon as we were done with that one, we were already planning our next costume. And that costume, the next year at PAX, was the same group of people, but we did, I gotta find this photo. We did, where is it? Ah, crap. This will just take me a moment to find it. But we did StarCraft. I don't know why that was so hard for me to pull out of myself. We did a whole StarCraft team. Let me see if I can search my photos. Back then, also, I do want to point out, back then, I was way, way, way into photography. So I was using Flickr a lot. Anyway, here is our second costume group. So Britt was the Queen of Blades. Mike was the Reaper. Aaron was the Ghost. Phil was Zeratul, and I was Jim Raynor. Side note, I didn't try very hard, but I wanted to make the full space armor. But this would have been my second costume, and that was right out. So I fumbled with a bunch of like Sintra for a day until I was like, I'll make Jim Raynor's civilian clothing. So that's what I ended up doing. You'll notice a couple of key features about my Jim Raynor costume. There is a spray painted wig. I can't recommend that. That wouldn't have been the right way to do that. But overall, it kind of worked. It kind of worked. You see the inklings of something going on there. But that was 2010. That was 8 years ago. 2010? Yeah. Oh my goodness. But at the time, I still had a day job. I was really into my photography. The prop and costume making was a fun thing I did every once in a while with my friends, usually just once a year. I actually learned how to make a mold. I made a urethane rubber mold. I don't know why I use urethane, but I made a urethane rubber mold for my Jim Raynor pistol. Funny story, I don't even have one of those. I made a couple of them and gave them away. And now I don't have one. The mold was terrible. I threw it away. Core Geek says that he shellacked a wig once. Okay, I don't feel so bad then. Yeah, so that was still way back when, 2010. Just having lots of fun cosplaying. And I still have a lot of fun cosplaying. Now, at that time, in 2008, I got hired at Microsoft, and that was my day job for a long time, working on the Xbox Live and Zune video marketplace, just publishing videos. So we would get television shows from providers, we would get them encoded to our spec, and then we would upload them to the Xbox Live video service and Zune. And I did that for like 4 years, and that was super fun. But I also think that was a pretty key factor as far as the initial success of Punished Props. at the time, both Brittany and I had good jobs. We could afford to invest in good tools. So that's when I started building out all my tool library. Whenever I needed something for a specific project, I'd run out and get that tool. In the chat, people are curious. Did you just say Zune? Yes, I said Zune. I own 2 of them. The Zune HD was a wonderful device. Wow. Crickets. But yeah, the time I spent at Microsoft, I made a lot of good friends at that job. I had disposable income and free time to work on my craft. And I also had the time and flexibility and money to travel. That was when, like, for example, the first time that my wife and I went to Dragon Con, we were both employed. We don't have any kids. We had free time and money. So we're like, hey, let's go to Atlanta, see what that's about. And then we got totally hooked on Dragon Con, and now we go every year. I also went to, we did PAX in Seattle every year. PAX East as well. We could travel there. Where else did we go? Mostly we were stuck on the video game thing. So PAX was a pretty big one for us. We also had a steampunk convention. Anyone in the chat into steampunk? We had one called SteamCon in Seattle for a number of years. So again, the same group of people that we had would go and we'd make all our steampunk costumes kind of themed together. So one year the theme was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So we all played a different part of a steampunk submarine crew. Tasmanian Nerd wants me to come to PAX Australia. Tell you what, if I get invited to go down there, that would be awesome. Because Australia's a bit of a trip, a bit of a flight, but not outside the realm of possibility. Let me see if I can find our steampunk crew. I know my buddy Nate took some good photos of it. If I can find it, Nate took a bunch of good photos. He, along with all the photos from my wedding. But there's a shot of Brittany in her Mass Effect Phantom costume, which was really amazing. Where's Nate? I gotta find my buddy Nate. There's Nate, and there's he is. And let's find the album. Albums. And I'm going way back. 20 would have been 2011, I think, or 2010. And I don't see it. But we had a whole... Oh, here we go. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So here's us and our bunch of buddies. There's me in a pirate sea captain outfit. I sewed that jacket, I'd like to point out. Followed a pattern. And there we go. This is our steampunk... what would you call it? Our submarine crew, our steampunk submarine crew. That was super fun, and this was 2010. So yeah, a lot of what we did to getting into cosplay was just literally just cosplaying with our friends. We always had this big group of people. We drag as many people in as we could, and we help each other with what we're working on and share what we're working on. And then when we were at the convention, we had this whole group of people. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Like I said, if you've got a question, tag @PunishProps in the chat, and I will see it. Desktop Adonis is curious about the CR10 or the Ender 3. I haven't tried either one of those printers, so I can't help you out. Fisher Build says, was there ever a big loss or fail that led you to decide to stick to prop and making or hang it up? I'll tell you. So I quit my job in 2012, which was a little over 6 years ago. And ever since then, I've had some days that have been incredibly challenging, more challenging than I've ever had before in my previous life or in any other job. But I never thought, well, I guess maybe I ought to not do this. I never gave myself a plan B. I was like, no, we're just going to make this work. Let me see here. So along with lots and lots of cosplay with our friends, I started taking commissions on the side. And I think that was kind of critical because I still had my day job. I still had a safety net. I still had a paycheck every 2 weeks. But I was starting to fund my building with the commissions I was taking. So a lot of the props and costumes and stuff that I was building, I'd put them up on my blog and I'd post on the RPF, and people started getting excited about that. And eventually I'd started getting people asking me to build stuff for them. And I thought, that's awesome. I'll spend my free time making props. I can sell that stuff and make a little extra money on the side. And that money can fund my prop and costume making. So I did that for a while. Again, I was also doing a lot with photography at the time. I thought maybe I would do photography as a career, and I shot a few weddings, and then I decided not to do photography as a career because I don't enjoy shooting weddings. But the lesson there was that some things are meant to just be, some things are just meant to be a hobby and just have fun with it. You don't have to make a career out of it. The prop making thing, there was so much interest from people on the internet to have me building stuff that I started to consider what it would take to turn that into a job. And a huge part of that was just getting my work out there, sharing as much as I could, and then starting to get commission requests from strangers on the internet. That would have been around 2011, so a year after this wonderful steampunk convention. Started doing more and more commissions. Actually, I have one of my first ones here. Just happen to have this on my desk. Oops, sorry about that. This is the Colonial handgun from the first season of Battlestar Galactica, the more recent Battlestar Galactica. And this was a commission from my brother and his wife, actually. They did Starbuck and Apollo cosplay, and they needed a sidearm. So I made this. I made one of the worst molds ever created in human history, and I cast a couple copies. This is the Master with a really, really over-the-top paint job. But yeah, that was one of the first commissions. It came from a family member. And after that, I posted that up on my blog, and people got more interested, and I think I sold a couple castings. And then I got into like Mass Effect and building armor and space guns from some of my favorite video games. The big key here is that everything I built got posted online on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, but more importantly on my blog. And if you go to punishprops.com, you can go all the way back to the very first blog posts, and you can see, I think the first one I posted was probably let me guess, it's going to be probably the rocket launcher. Let's see, how many pages of posts do I have? Wow, more than 50. Let's go to like 80 pages worth. Oh yeah, still going way back. But anyway, the blog meant I had a place where I could post my projects, and they would live there forever. Unlike Facebook or Instagram or social media platforms, your blog can be a place where things you have more control over how you tag them, about SEO, and how they live in perpetuity. So, all right, I found the first blog post, and yes, it was the rocket launcher, and this was posted back in 2011. Actually, 9/23/2011. That is almost 7 years ago. It's really brief, just kind of shows a couple of the steps. I didn't take a lot of progress photos, obviously, but that now lives as an artifact of this career, which I think is kind of cool. Space City Props says, how did you decide on the name? So I had a blog I called Punished Pixels, and that came from a podcast I listened to where they decided how much photo manipulation is fair game when it comes to photography, digital photography. And one of the guys said that pixels were meant to be punished. that all photo manipulation is on the board for artistic purposes. And I really kind of dug that vibe, so I called my blog Punished Pixels. And then when I did the prop thing, it became Punished Props. That's really kind of how it worked into it. If I had to do it again, I'd probably name it something different. Now we call it Punished Props Academy because we've really embraced the whole learning aspect of it. Fisher Build says, were the books a natural transition from blogs, or was that only a revenue item, or was that always a goal of yours to have a book? After I learned an awful lot about prop making, I really wanted to document everything I had learned so far. And I had an idea that I was going to write this like tell-all tome of all the things. And then I talked to one of my mentors, and he said to start small, write a short book, write it quickly, and get it out, and then write another one. So I wrote the Beginner's Guide to Making Mind-Blowing Props, which is free now if you want to go get that. Actually, I'll find a link to that. But I wrote that in 2013, I think, and started selling it for super cheap. And people were really excited about that. And that's kind of where the book thing got started. There was such a huge response to that I decided, well, I need to write more. Let me see here. Yeah, and I'm going to post a link in the chat, and there is a link to get the Mind-Blowing Props book for free. So if you want a good bit of reading, that's a great place to start. There's a lot of other good stuff there too. Have you ever considered, Paragon Studios wants to know, have you ever considered working for a prop studio before developing your own company? Not really. I didn't even know it was a job, like to be a prop maker for another studio. I didn't even know that was like a job. Because I live in Seattle. If I lived in LA, that might be a different story. If I lived in Vancouver, British Columbia, that might be a different story. But I was in Seattle and I was making stuff, and people were just straight up paying me to make stuff for them. So I was like, hey, let's just do that. So it's not like I had a specific business mind or trajectory in place. I just kept doing the thing that seemed to be working at the time. Okay, back to the story. My last year of my full-time job, usually I always went to work every day. I never missed work. But I got to a point where I started thinking, well, every day I get up and I work on props until I have to go to work. What if I didn't have to go to work? Like, that started to like creep into my head. Let's see here. Does the shop, Rusty Prop says, does this shop you're in now feel like the place you dreamed about when you started? Yeah, kind of. Although I will say, for the longest time, I didn't feel like I was missing out because I had all the tools I needed, at least at the time. And especially a little over 5 years ago, we moved into our basement, and that was way more room than I had before, so I felt kind of spoiled. So anyway, back to the story. We'll finish up this bit, and then we'll take some more questions. I started thinking I would be awesome if I had another 8 hours a day to work on props. And I was getting more and more commissions to the point where I wasn't going to be able to finish them all because I just didn't have enough time. So after conversing with my wife and coming up with a very primitive plan, I quit my job. And that was in 2012. I had been at Microsoft for just over 4 years, and I felt like I had done everything I wanted to do there. And I decided to quit. Right before I quit, though, I went to PAX East, and I did a panel with my buddy Matt Munson, my buddy Harrison Cricks, my buddy Xander from Z Props, which was super, super fun. And then I got to fly out to San Francisco to be on a podcast on the Twit network, This Week in Tech. My friend Brian Brushwood and Veronica Belmont and Justin Robert Young, they had a short-lived but really fun podcast called Game On. And I got to be a guest on that, talking about all the props and stuff that I made from video games. After I did all that, I was like, this is a lot of fun. And I went home and I quit my job. Yes, Space City Props. I had about 12% of a plan. Hey, Darth Marcus is here. Good to see you, buddy. Brian in the chat just posted a link to the episode of Game On that I was on. I love it. Why don't we bring that up real quick on the screen? I'm going to, yeah. So this was a super fun show. It just never really got the legs it was going to need to get to exist long term. Let's see. Oh, Anthony Carboni was on this episode. That's awesome. Boy, this is a long time ago. But if you look about halfway through, it's Veronica, and then it's me and Brian. Me looking quite a bit more in shape with a lot less gray on my face. But this was 2011. Or 2012. Very cool. So anyway, right after that, I went home and decided I was going to be a prop maker full time. I didn't exactly know what that meant, but I went and quit my job. Nerdy View says, I totally remember Game On. I was a fan of those guys way before I even knew about Punished Props. That's amazing. Maybe you learn about us from me being on that episode of Game On. I wonder how many people watched that episode. Let's see. There's 1,400 views. That's not a lot. Oh my. Maybe more people watched it on their RSS feed. So yeah, that's pretty much my story. Went from being a computer art student to a bartender. At some point when I moved to Seattle, I actually taught high school for a year. I forgot to mention that. What else? Then I worked at Microsoft for a while, and then I quit my job to make props. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, anyone in the chat, if you want to know any more about my backstory, please let me know down or in the chat. Tag at Punish Props. The Nature says, you really should clean off the white foam dust from your beard. I try, but it's just stuck to my face. I can't get all this foam dust out. Yes, Ringleader Luna. If the gray comes in anymore, I'll be a dead ringer for Geralt from The Witcher. Awesome. Master of None says, I got turned your way by Bob at I Like to Make Stuff. That's awesome. If Bob is still in the chat, then Bob, thank you for sending Master of None our way. Goran Gami says, have you ever lived in Europe for an extended period of time, or would you like to? I haven't. I've been there, and I would love to spend an extended period of time in any country other than my own. I think that'd be really fun. Ringleader Luna wants to ask a prop question. Yes, please, go for it. Blitzatrek says, what did you teach children to do? I taught high schoolers Dreamweaver, which is largely useless now, and some 3D modeling. So I taught them some Maya stuff. Teaching high schoolers how to use Maya is incredibly challenging, if you're curious. But I had a lot of fun doing it, and I would show the kids card tricks whenever I ran out of material. DL Dishy says, you'd make a good Joel from The Last of Us right now. You know what? I can't disagree with you there. I'd probably make a good Joel. Bulldog Prop says, I'm assuming there's a certain level of fear about whether or not prop making as a career would be short-lived. You know what? I'm going to say that I was just naive enough to think I could pull it off. I wasn't afraid. I had some money saved up. Brittany still had a day job. So I was like, man, what's the worst that can happen? Let's see. Undead Myth says, you see a glue for the first time and it gave off smoke. Is that normal or dangerous? That happens sometimes. I wouldn't inhale that. I'd stay away from it, but that's sometimes if you put a lot of glue on and a lot of the accelerant, then it will smoke a little bit. It does get quite warm. Shino X Art says, what other considerations did you have when you were weighing the pros and cons of quitting besides time and money? The only thing that mattered to me is that I would get 8 more hours every day that I could work on props. That's the only thing that mattered. I didn't really, I didn't come up with a plan B. I just went for it. Again, I was in a position where I could afford to be that brazen. I could always go back to bartending if I had to, and I could have probably got my job back at Microsoft if I had to, but I didn't even think about that. All I thought was, I'll figure out a way to make it work. William Grunge says, I'm a college student studying sculpture. I've been doing cosplay for about a year. What are your tips for a new prop maker trying to make it in the business? Business is the right word. If you want to run your own business, or if you want to work for other people as a freelancer, then learn business. If you're already in school and there's any kind of business class available, take it. You're already paying for your schooling. You might as well stack it up with some classes that are going to help. Anything on business or sales or marketing, those are all really valuable things that I did not take when I was in college, and I wish I had. Let's see here. Fisher Build says, you should come speak to my company. Exclusively Dreamweaver web shop. That's awesome. Let's see. Rusty's Props says, not sure how to get known on social media. Run a blog. Start your own blog. You could do, we use WordPress, but you could use like Squarespace or Wix to make a website really easily. And document everything you do, every build you do, even if it's just write-ups. Videos are better, but even if you're doing photo blogs where you just show the process, blogs are things that people will find when they're searching how to do stuff. So you have to make that evergreen content available. A blog is the best way to do it. Let's see here. Space City Props was on a YouTube rabbit hole. Came across an unboxing video of a District 9 rifle, and I had to know, who is this Punished Props? So yeah, Google it was. That's awesome. Let's see. Ringleader Luna is making Sephiroth's sword. Easy way to put it away for moving or travel. You're gonna have to make that blade break in half, which is unfortunate because it doesn't look like it should break in half. But if you need to travel with it, then it's gotta come apart. I would probably build something like that. It would be expensive, but I would model it, mold it, cast it, then cut it in half and add metal fasteners of some kind, whether it screws on, sorry, punch the microphone, or has like pins that slide together and then magnet closed. You're gonna have to do some trial and error to figure all that out. So good luck. Awesome. Let's keep going. We got some other great questions. Let's see. Fisher Build says, you spoke on Tested about pricing your worth. Any formula for pricing commissions? Not really. I mean, it really boils down to figuring out how much you need to make per day, what your day rate is. I do have a couple of good videos you can check out that might help. But the reality is, my overhead, what it costs to run all of this for one day, is going to be very different than what it costs you. So I can't give you a figure or a formula. You just have to figure out what your time is worth. What does it cost to rent your place, to power your place, to keep the water on, to keep the internet running? What does that all cost per day? And then how many days is it going to take to build the thing? David Picciuto has a really good how to price your work video, and I will share this in the notes and in the chat. Whoop, there's the link there. So yeah, that's a super useful bit of knowledge for you. Let me add that to my notes. Grab another question. Undead Myth says, can you come to FaxCon and give a panel? I don't know what FaxCon is. I can tell you that we are abstaining from most conventions this year as we focus on getting this shop all up and running. But potentially sometime in the future I could come to FaxCon. Paragon Props says, when you did, how often did people ask to trade for props instead of buying them from you? That happens occasionally, but mostly among other people who are also makers. So we do a lot of like kit trading. Once you have a resin or a mold, like a silicone mold make, and you can pull resin copies, you can trade those with you and your friends. I think one company wanted to trade me beef jerky for a prop. And while I was tempted, I was like, hey, it's a true story page. While it was tempting, I decided not to live on beef jerky for a month, and I turned them down. That's a good question. Let's see here. Star Shadow says, would you guys consider doing a video on the recent material, foam clay? Yes, we are working on getting some so we can play with it. Paige actually got some, and she's been playing with it, but I want some for myself. You know that once we have it and once I play with it, we'll totally do a video on it. Let's see. Lots of great questions. Paragon Studios says, I've been dying to meet you in person. You've helped me a lot with your videos. Awesome. When's the next public place you'll be at? Probably BlizzCon? I will definitely be at BlizzCon. There's another thing I will be at, but I'm not sure if I'm clear to talk about it yet. But it rhymes with Mitch Flan. Pretty subtle, right? Wow. Fax is in Belgium. Okay, cool. So that's a Belgium con. I would love to come to Belgium. That sounds awesome. William Grunge says, would you be interested in doing an artist talk or workshop at my university? Potentially. A lot of this comes down to whether or not I have the time for it and whether or not you have the budget for it. So that'd be great. It's a Trap says, do you go to the Wowhead BlizzCon party? I've never been to any of the cool parties at BlizzCon. I usually go there and in the evenings hang out at the Marriott by the pool because it's nice and they have heaters outside, so it's like a good temperature and I can get a beer without having to wait forever and it's not crazy loud. I am not the kind of person who goes to the Hilton at BlizzCon. It's way too hip for me and way too loud. I can't remember the context, but J4 Cash says, what about brisket? Just in general, I love brisket. It's very delicious. Kagato, that's Nick. He's excited about BlizzCon, and I am excited to see you there, good sir. I guess we're getting pretty close to the end here. If you have any more questions, drop them in the chat. I'll answer as many as I can before I get back to work in the shop. Neatsters has one that's a little off topic. It says, how do you hotel for Dragon Con? Okay, I cheated, kind of. We stay at the Hyatt. What was that? They gave you one? They gave me one? No, they didn't give me one. They give anyone who is sort of grandfathered in gets first dibs at the hotel. So I stayed at the Hyatt, and then they have a program where if you stay there for Dragon Con, you get first dibs at the previous year. So I just keep staying at the Hyatt. Like every time I check in for Dragon Con, I sign up for the next year. So that's how I did it. If you're not already a part of that, then you may have to figure out another way. So yeah, I don't have any advice on how to get a room at Dragon Con now. What you could do is go back 6 or 7 years and get a Hyatt room like I did. Probably not possible. Good luck. Let's see. Shino XArt says, makers are the kind of habitual offenders of burning the candle at both ends and sometimes in the middle. Can you talk a little bit about how you avoid burnout and when you draw the line for work time, personal time, both now and when you were working at your day job? When I was working at my day job, I was still in my 20s and I just worked all the time, all day, and there were no consequences because I was healthy and I worked out a lot back then, and I didn't really have anything else to do, so it was fine. Nowadays, I still just work all the time. Having the shop and having my house separate from the shop has been great for that work-life balance thing. We work about 9 to 10 hours a day, about 6 or 7 days a week. But we've been doing a lot better at taking more days off. Brittany's actually been scheduling more like monthly trips for us to just get away from the shop for a while, which has been awesome. I'll be honest, there have been times during this whole journey where it's been a bit too much and it's a bit overwhelming, but I have a really great support around me. I've got my wonderful wife. Now I've got 2 fantastic employees. I'm high-fiving Paige in the air. And a lot of friends that help us out. So Having a good support team around you makes a huge difference when you tend to burn the candle at both ends and in the middle. Let's grab a couple more questions. These are great. You guys are bringing some really awesome questions. Let's see here. Rusty Props recently made a YouTube channel making weekly videos. That's fantastic. I'm going to go find you on YouTube. Let's see. Rusty's Props. Rusty's Props. Let's see. Hopefully this is the same Rusty's Props. I'm going to subscribe to you since you're making weekly videos. So there you go. Already got sculpting tools. We got Allen wrench storage. We got a wine bottle stopper. That's fantastic. Keep up the excellent work. I look forward to watching your videos, and I will share your channel in the chat. Boop. There you go. Was there a question? Let's see here. Weekly videos help people get interested in posting links to my video on Facebook page and Twitter. Yeah, I mean, that's the bare minimum. Like, as long as you're doing that, then you're on the right path. Just keep making really great content and make stuff that you're passionate about. And then the other people who are passionate about that stuff will find it, and they will find you, and they'll think that you're rad. Let's see. Blitzatrek says, are you making a Project Ebon Blade for BlizzCon? I am not. At least I don't have any plans to at the moment. I'm not sure if I'm going to make anything for BlizzCon. I'll figure that out here pretty soon, hopefully. Let's see here. Fisher Builds says, as you are the godfather of making to some of us, who is your earliest inspiration like that? Oh, that's a really fantastic question. When I got into prop making, I think the three people that I got the most inspiration from would be Harrison Cricks from Volpin Props, Sean Thorsoon from Thorsoon Associates, and Mike Iverson from Blind Squirrel Props. Those three guys, the common thing they all had was a blog. Hopefully you guys are starting to hear this over and over again. All three of those guys had blogs where they shared everything they did for every one of their projects. And they were really good resources for me when I was getting started. I also spent a lot of time on the RPF, reading other people's builds. And a lot of the guys like Sean and Harrison would post stuff in the RPF and on their blog. So it existed in a couple of places. But yeah, those three guys were the three that I got a lot of inspiration and information from when I got started. Undead Myth says, I'm trying to find a name for my prop business, but it's just not working out. So whatever the name ends up being, just know that it'll be associated with you and your work. The name doesn't have to describe you and your work, but it will become ubiquitous with it. So, for example, if we think of some big brands like Apple. Apple is a fruit. It has nothing to do with phones or tablets or PCs. But we associate the name Apple with all of those things because it's become ubiquitous now. Kind of like United is now ubiquitous with having them shove you out of your seat and killing your pets. The term United doesn't say anything about airplanes, but now everyone is pretty sure if you get on a United flight, they're going to punch you in the face. That's just how association works. Yeah. Let's see. All right, we got a couple more, and then I've got to cut it short because I got a bunch more work to do because I'm flying to San Francisco tomorrow, so I got to get this show on the road. Let's see. Maker Wayne says, where do you go for inspiration when the well seems dry? I watch a lot of YouTube videos, lots of other makers of all types. Woodworkers, metalworkers. So I'm constantly inspired. The well is never dry. I have a list of projects I want to do that is getting longer, not shorter. So, yeah, that never seems to be an issue. Excuse me. Corium9, hey buddy, thanks for hanging out. Says, any advice for when you are not the host or main person on a show, so you're not standing uncomfortably wondering what to do while they're talking? Look at the camera and smile. Never hurts to smile and just wait patiently for your turn to talk. Don't fidget. Don't touch your face when you're on camera. just don't touch keeping your hands off your face in general when you're in public is a pretty good pretty good tip. But yeah, just stand patiently, cross your hands, have your hands at your side, or maybe just crossed in front of you or behind you. Smile and look at the camera. Let's see there. Let's see if we have any more questions. Nate Stir says, do you tell Britt every day that she is the wind in your sails? No, I don't, but I should. Thank you. And thanks everyone for asking really wonderful questions today. You guys are awesome. I will have links to everything we talked about in the show notes at some point. But that's about it. Hopefully you guys enjoy the look into my life before Punished Props. And yeah, maybe there's a bit of that you can find useful for your journey. Before we go, I'd like to point out that we have some really great stuff coming out on the website soon. I also want to thank our patrons. Let's jump over to Patreon super quick. Patreon.com/punishedprops is where you want to go. We have been trying to give more and more extra stuff to our patrons. So every week we have a vlog from the shop. One of those just went live yesterday. So there's the vlog that we did. I also do an extra credit video for all of our builds. So for our full builds, I will film a talk about that build that goes into more detail, a lot of the stuff that went on in that build. And then the other big thing that we have for our patrons is videos go live on Monday, but they go live for patrons on Friday. So if you want to get to see every video that goes out a few days early, then you're in luck because those videos are going out to patrons early. Oh my God, we have a raid right at the end of the show. It looks like Talk Custom. Let's see. Talk Raid, Bag Crazy, Fake Beards, Magic Butthole, Pirates for Miles. Very good. Thank you everyone for showing up. It's a Trap says, I've been really enjoying the vlogs. Yeah, if you want to get to see a lot of the behind the scenes of what we do here in the shop and in the office, when we're not filming videos or building stuff, then the vlogs over on Patreon are the best place for that. So once again, if you're a patron, or if you're not yet a patron, you can head on over to patreon.com/punishedprops, get access to a ton of extra content, and you're helping out us and our entire team, which is 4 human beings, which I think is pretty fantastic. Thanks. The page says thanks. You guys are literally helping her pay her bills, which is wonderful. That's everything I have for you guys today. I know, thanks for showing up, Talk. We are, of course, ending the stream, but thank you so much for hanging out and swinging by and bringing all of your wonderful friends with you. That's all I have for you guys today. So, yeah, you guys keep being awesome, and we'll see you in the next one.